Good morning, everybody. We're back at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for day 2 of the Silverstone 500 race event and part 2 of the season opener for the Ginetta GT and GT Academy Championships, which kicked off yesterday afternoon with a dramatic first 25-minute race of the season. Another 25 minutes lie in wait now for the grid of drivers split across 2 categories, sharing the grid for the first time this year. The more powerful V8-powered Ginetta GT cars at the front of the field, and then behind them a big pack of V6 engine Ginetta GT Academy cars for the less experienced drivers. Yesterday's GT Championship race was particularly entertaining. The race really only decided in the dying seconds, with dramas for a couple of the Orion SPR drivers who had been looking fairly dominant up until that point. All of them seemingly running into issues right at the end of the race. Haven't yet got to the bottom of what those issues were, but suspect maybe some fuel-related dramas, and that handed the victory to, on the road, Cameron Pratt-Thompson, but he picked up a 5-second track limits penalty, and it was in the end that man, Harry Gamble, who was able to claim the race victory, having fallen almost to the back of the Ginetta GT Championship pack on the opening lap. He tried an ambitious move around the outside at Beckett's, found himself on the dirty side of the road. There was a small touch with Cameron Pratt-Thompson, and he went off completely, heading onto the Hanger Straight, but Harry methodically picked his way back through the order and then took advantage of some of the strange happenings ahead of him and was able to cross the line, as I said, not first on the road. In fact, because of all of the late dramas, Cameron Pratt-Thompson very nearly built up enough of a lead to win in spite of that 5-second penalty, but by 1.4 seconds on corrected times, it was Gamble who claimed the victory. In the GT Academy portion of the race, well, Louis Bailica was utterly dominant, the German driver winning by a very comfortable margin in the end, something like 16 seconds or so, I think, ahead of the next driver within the rookie element of the GT Academy race. It was Joseph Stoltov who finished second, the American driver. He was the GT Academy class winner. For the non-rookie drivers, essentially, those who have some racing experience, be that within Ginetta ranks or elsewhere, and he was able to come home a class winner and second place overall. So what does race 2 have in store for us? Hopefully Orion SPR have got to the bottom of their issues from yesterday. If they have, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. They've got some very quick drivers, and Felix Livesey, the ex-Ginetta Junior frontrunner, led all bar one lap yesterday before his car slowed approaching the start of the final lap. He is definitely going to be gunning for a little bit of revenge in race number 2. It's Cameron Pratt-Thompson, though, the winner on the road yesterday, who starts from pole position. William Antrobus, one of those Orion SPR cars, starts alongside him. Then Felix Livesey, who grabbed the lead from second on the grid yesterday. What can he do from third? This time he's got yesterday's winner, Harry Gamble, for company on row 2. Row 3 for Louis Darling. He was tapped into a spin at Village early doors yesterday. James Nicholas starts alongside him, ahead of yesterday's AM class winner, Alex Duncan, who starts second in the class behind James for race 2. He's got Jamie Cordell, another GT Academy graduate, alongside him, whilst the top 10 is completed by Elliot Foster and Lucy Hodgson, another driver to slow and retire at the end of yesterday's race. Then comes the GT Academy pole sitter, yesterday's winner, Louis Bailica, with Joseph Stoltov, the American, alongside him. Tom Walker and Ian Bowman share the second row of the grid. Ian Bowman, former stock car racer, starting fourth on the grid. Connor Blackburn, former Fiesta ST240 frontrunner, he was off down here at Abbey yesterday in the early stages. He's hoping to go better than that today. He starts alongside Will Fallon with another American driver, Maxwell Waitman, and Ben Wiseman together on the next row of the grid. Then it's Alan Wright. Alan Wright was the Chairman's Cup winner for drivers over the age of 45 yesterday. He starts alongside Faye Goff, sister of Lewis Goff, Ginetta Junior Championship leader. Lucas Theo and Julian Wantling are next, ahead of Ash Young, Ben Cook, and at the back of the field, Robin Grimwood. Robin started last yesterday, but did manage to pick up a few positions over the course of the 25-minute race. So 2 championships sharing the grid together, classes within those. In the GT Championship, you'll hear me referring to Pro and AM. Sort of does what it says on the tin, really. Alex Duncan, the AM class winner yesterday, though, was an overall podium finisher. And in the Ginetta GT Championship, you score points based on your overall finishing position. So if an AM driver can finish ahead of some of the pros, they will outscore those pro drivers within the Ginetta GT Championship. In GT Academy, however, it works slightly slightly differently. Your points are scored based on your class finishing position. So the second place driver yesterday, Joseph Stoltov, will pick up first place points because he was the first GTA class driver home. If any of that made any kind of sense. I'll try and keep you up to date with class winners, etc. as we move through the 25-minute race. 2 by 2 they run then through Luffield. The Lotus safety car will pull to the pit lane and a rolling start will commence. Now yesterday, like I said, Felix Livesey started his Orion SPR car from the outside of the front row and managed to get himself ahead of Cameron Pratt-Thompson through the first couple of corners. Can William Antrobus now, former karting star, do the same thing? Keep an eye for Gamble, he starts 4th. That's exactly where he started yesterday, and he'll be gunning for a second race victory. Red lights then go out. We're away in racing for the second time this weekend. It's an equal start at the front of the field, as you'd expect, I guess, from a rolling start. Looks like Bailica has got an uncontested lead in the GT Academy portion of the race. The GT cars, though, swarm through Copse Corner and head to Maggotts and Beckett's for the first time. Is William Antrobus alongside Cameron Pratt-Thompson. He is, and he's going to try and pull off the Livesey move from yesterday, which he has. Fantastic. So William Antrobus, exactly as his teammate did yesterday, sweeps around the outside at Beckett's and gets the lead away from Cameron Pratt-Thompson. Gamble this time, though, is clean through the Maggotts and Beckett's complex. He settles into 3rd position. And the yellow and black car, the Hooch liveried machine, is on the attack. Look, it tucks right in behind the second place man, Cameron Pratt-Thompson, who now has a 2nd position to defend, having started from pole. Round Stowe Corner they go for the first time. Very wide for Gamble. Again, finds that there isn't a lot of grip offline. Runs, in fact, well beyond track limits. That's definitely a part of the circuit where that's being monitored, so he needs to be a bit careful doing that. Through then the club chicane at the bottom of the Vale. And all of this battling for second, playing nicely into the hands of Antrobus, the leader. Although again, yesterday, Livesey sort of pulled an early gap and was then reeled in by the cars behind. So Livesey, who currently is in 5th position, will be hoping that he can make a bit of progress and get after his teammate Antrobus before he gets away. There's been a spin for the number 13 car down at the club chicane. That's Ian Beaumont. So Ian Beaumont with a rotation. Ian, 2nd of the rookies within GT Academy yesterday. We'll have to go some now to repeat that performance in race 2. The lead pack make their way through the loop. That's James Nicholas's black and turquoise 99 car. And there, his sparring partner from GT Academy from last year, Jamie Cordell, a little bit further back in this race. A big dive to the inside into the loop. And in fact, one car taking a very odd line. That is Joseph Stoltov, I think, yesterday's GTA class winner, who looked to be going off the road. He's not the only one. The 25 is off down at Brooklands. That is Louis Darling, who had early dramas yesterday. That one was a bit more self-inflicted. And at least he is able to rejoin without any damage, albeit lots of track position lost, of course. So these beautifully turned out Orion SPR cars. They're quick, aren't they? But they've not had a trouble-free weekend so far. They do lead, though, courtesy of William Antrobus at the end of lap 1, with Cameron Pratt-Thompson and Harry Gamble currently 2nd and 3rd. James Nicholas is leading in the AM class, so he's ahead of Alex Duncan. So Alex, yesterday's AM winner, 2nd, ahead of Jamie Cordell. And in GT Academy, it is Bailica who leads. But yes, Stoltov well down the order at the end of lap 1. So there's been dramas for the American driver, who was 2nd overall in GT Academy, but a class winner in yesterday's first race. In fact, he's pitting, so I think he's got dramas of other kinds, not just driver error. Maybe sustained some damage on that opening lap. We'll wait and see. His car then tours down the pit lane as the GT Championship pack descends upon Stowe Corner. There's the fight for 2nd in the AM class. So that's Jamie Cordell all over Alex Duncan, who's not got away to such a strong start today. Yesterday, he never really faced much of a challenge for that class win. Plumes of smoke and a recovering car at Chapel. That's Julian Wantling, who has gone around. Julian Wantling, who was the 2024 GTA class champion, electing to stay within the GT Academy class. Was this self-inflicted? He's got the 33 car behind him. He's got the 33 car into the back of him, and that was definitely contact between he and Faye Goff, and that may well be looked at by race control. So, out in front of the GT Academy field, there is the German driver, Louis Bailica, who leads overall in GT Academy, and of course, therefore, leads within the rookie category as well. 2nd is Tom Walker. He's the leading GTA class driver for the slightly more experienced entrance into the championship, with Connor Blackburn so far off to a better start than he was yesterday, running a solid 3rd. There is Walker. And so Tom Walker, who was 2nd in rookie yesterday, second in GTA yesterday, leads the class this time around. Good battle here between Blackburn and the number 30 car. That's Will Fallon, who sweeps around the outside of Blackburn. This is for second place in class. They're side by side down the Wellington Straight. Blackburn to the right as we look at it, Fallon to the left, and that's not the preferred line generally into Brooklands. And so the 66 car stays ahead. Conor Blackburn, to my knowledge, making his first appearance in a rear-wheel drive car this weekend. The only time I've seen him race has been in a front-wheel drive Ford Fiesta ST240, front-wheel drive, slick-tired, turbocharged cars, a very different beast to these rear-wheel drive V6 engined GT cars, essentially, but running on a Pirelli road tyre, not a slick. So lots for Conor to learn, but he's acclimatising well and runs at the moment in a podium position. GT field down the Hanger Straight. Looks to me as though Cameron Pratt-Thompson is starting to close on William Antrobus, for the fastest man on the track is the 4th place car, the number 31 of Felix Livesey, and you can see the effects of that fastest lap that he just set. He's closed right in on Harry Gamble, who again doesn't look to have the early race speed, but yesterday came on strong in the second half of the race. Slightly longer races these, 25 minutes, so there's an element of tyre management going on. These tyres are more than capable of doing the duration, of course they are, but when you get the best out of the tyres is key, and you need to try and save a little bit of rubber for the closing stages. Livesey then with the fastest lap, a 2-minute 10.842. That's about a second away from the lap record pace set by Archie Clark a year ago. Slightly cooler conditions this morning, so in theory the track should be a little bit faster. There's a chance that fastest lap at the very least could be beaten before the checkered flag. The sun, though, just starting now to burn through the clouds. It was fully overcast and a little bit chilly when we rocked up at Silverstone this morning, but we anticipate temperatures again climbing into the high teens at the very least later on this afternoon. But that won't be of any concern for the Ginetta GT and GT Academy drivers, who have just the 2 races this weekend. So an early finish for them. There's your AM class leader, James Nicholas, and he is stretching away from Alex Duncan, so they've maybe done some work on that car overnight, tweaked the setup, and James Nicholas in his second race now in this category is looking very, very strong indeed. Here comes the battle for third, meanwhile. Felix Livesey to the outside of Harry Gamble, right round the outside at Copse Corner. And they're still side by side, heading towards Maggots and Beckett's. Harry Gamble putting up a spirited defence. We know Livesey likes the outside line down at Beckett's, but he wasn't quite alongside enough that time. So Gamble fends him off for now, and every corner really that goes by that Gamble keeps Livesey behind is excellent news for William Antrobus and Cameron Pratt-Thompson, because I think Livesey might have the speed to catch up to those two if he was ever released into clean air. They drag their way past the number 19 car, that's Joseph Stoltoff, who's back out on track. And in fact, I think this might be his outlap from the pit lane, having resolved whatever the early drama was, they hope. He's staying well out of the way of the faster GT cars. GTP spec Ginetta G56, which debuted at the start of last year and was an absolute hit. And provided some fantastic racing, limited aero, lots of power. It's a good combination for good racing historically, and Ginetta very much leading into that. Here are the leading 2. Antrobus actually nicked the fastest lap back last time, a 2-minute 10.0. That is quicker than we went at any point yesterday, suggesting that yes, the track conditions are better. However, Cameron Pratt-Thompson very much responding this time around with an outright fastest second sector. He is about 4 tenths quicker than Antrobus so far on this lap, and that gap is down to car lengths rather than tenths of a second now, I would say, to be measured in. They head down towards one of the better overtaking opportunities on the circuit at Brooklands. Pratt-Thompson not close enough to think about a move. Livesey was considering one against Harry Gamble for third, but in the end the order stays unchanged. Lovely rumbling noise the cars make as they accelerate out of Luffield and past the pits. And Pratt-Thompson, who was twice a podium finisher last year, former junior saloon car racer, he'll really want to try and bounce back from yesterday's disappointment had it not been for that track limits penalty, which he incurred whilst chasing down Felix Livesey, who had pulled that early lead on him, and he would have been the race winner, even though Livesey was able to stay ahead of him until his late issues. There is the driver who led almost all of race 1. Connor Blackburn, meanwhile, has now been overtaken, look, by Will Fallon. So Will Fallon up into 2nd place within the GTA class of GT Academy. But Tom Walker is, I think, quite some way ahead of these two. I can't see him in that camera shot, so it's at least 3 or 4 seconds, I think, the lead that Walker has in GTA. And Bailica is 4.5 seconds ahead of him. There is Louis Darling, meanwhile, nipping to the inside of Alex Duncan. This is for 6th position. In fact, Darling was ahead of Duncan at the start of the lap, but is slipping down the order slightly. James Nicholas has got past him already, and now the 2nd-placed AM driver does the same. So Louis Darling struggling a little bit in this second race. We didn't really get to see what sort of pace he had yesterday after that early spin, from which I think he sustained some damage and was forced to retire. Lead battle heads towards Village, as does the 3rd-place squabble, and Harry Gamble using all of the braking capabilities of his car into the right-hander, sliding the car in. He was doing that a little bit yesterday, but he's keeping Felix Livesey at bay. Bodes well for a competitive season, this, though, I think, because it does seem as though this sort of leading group of 4 pro drivers are very evenly matched in pace. I know in this one, Gamble's just slipped back a little bit from the top 2, but from what we saw yesterday, I think going forward to other racetracks, we're going to have some really good competition in this category. Livesey's just managed to prize an opening, maybe, through Luffield, but no, Harry Gamble, who was very wide going into the corner, cuts back to a tight exit and manages to power back through. So Livesey remaining frustrated. If anything, James Nicholas is now starting to catch these two ever so slightly. The AM leader enjoys a 2.8 second lead over Alex Duncan, but might have his eyes on gaining a few more positions. Like I said, in the GT Championship, your overall finishing position is what dictates your point score. So valuable points to be had if James can catch these two, or if this battle for 3rd becomes a little bit too energetic and they end up falling back into his clutches. So we're about halfway through our second 35-minute race of the weekend. Cameron Pratt-Thompson sets another new fastest lap, 2-minute 10.066. Although Livesey faster again in the first sector this time. The SVG Motorsport prepared car of Cameron Pratt-Thompson really starting now to apply the pressure to the race leader. Livesey has been applying pressure to Harry Gamble for the last sort of 6, 7, 8 minutes or so. But can't find a way through. Difficult when the cars are so evenly matched and the drivers so evenly matched to make that crucial overtake. Time penalty, by the way, applied to Will Fallon for exceeding track limits. So Will Fallon might have got himself ahead of Connor Blackburn in that fight for 2nd in the GTA class, but he now needs to pull a 5-second gap over Blackburn in order to keep the place. There's a spin for the 63 car. That's Ben Cook. That's at Copse Corner. Couldn't quite see who he was involved with. He was scrapping with Ian Beaumont and Robin Grimwood at the start of the lap. The 3 of them, I think, arrived at Copse Corner pretty much together. This is what happened. Oh, it was a tap in the tail from Ian Beaumont, who has had an eventful race so far, it's fair to be said. He had a spin on the opening lap and now has been involved in another spin for another driver. Number 17 also now being given a track limits penalty as William Antrobus is a bit slow out of Luffield Corner for the race lead. Then Cameron Pratt-Thompson is presented with his best opportunity yet. Drags alongside Antrobus. This is the outside line into Copse Corner. Will he go right round the outside or try and get the switch back? It's, well, sort of a bit of both, but he has got a better exit than Antrobus. Nowhere to go, though. Gets a face full of Ginetta on the run down into Maggots and Beckett's. This the 7th time of asking, and Cameron Pratt-Thompson thought that that was his golden opportunity. Maybe a bad gear change or just a bit of a slide coming out of Luffield for Antrobus, as almost cost him the race lead, but he hangs on. That 17 car, by the way, that has been given a warning for track limits, a correction, not a penalty, just a warning. That is Lewis Bailica there, the GT Academy leader. So black and white warning flag for track limits. nothing too much to worry about just yet, but if he does it again, he'll get a 5-second penalty. However, he was over 5 seconds clear of the second best of the GT Academy cars at the beginning of the lap, so actually could probably afford that penalty. He'd still rather not get one, though, I'm sure. Antrobus then survives that little scare at Luffield, keeps Cameron Pratt-Thompson in his rear-view mirror, but can he keep him there for the duration of the race? We've still got 10.5 minutes to go. 57 is William Antrobus. He's now being warned about track limits. We had a couple of track limit penalties yesterday, but I think we're getting a few more warnings in this second race than we'd had by this stage in race 1. Antrobus now really can't afford to put a foot wrong, but when you're under this sort of pressure, it's so easy to just pick up the throttle a little bit too early on corner exit, and especially as the tyres start to wear out, run a little bit wide. They're limited on tyre usage over the weekend as well, so it's entirely possible that some of these drivers are on the same tyres that they've run certainly at some point earlier in the weekend, maybe during qualifying. So the Pirelli tyres not necessarily yielding the same amount of grip now as they would have been at the start of the race, and can lead to drivers wandering beyond track limits. That is the case perhaps for the number 27 car that's now been given a penalty. That is Alex Duncan. So Alex Duncan, yesterday's AM-class winner, with a 5-second penalty to be added now. That will cost him a fair few positions. I think 5 seconds would lose him 2 places, and crucially, second place in class to Jamie Cordell as it stands. Duncan's pace is better than Cordell's, though, so there's a chance he could extend that gap before the end of the race. Will Fallon, number 30, he's got a penalty, so in reality he's behind Connor Blackburn and the number 92 car of Maxwell Waithman. But they still want to try and find a way past him. Blackburn to the inside at Village, snatches the brake, and that may well have flat-spotted the tyre. That's the least of his concerns, though, because Waithman now launches to the inside at the loop and manages to steal the place away. This is all for, essentially, second position in the GTA class. Second on the road is Fallon. He'll fall behind these two on corrected times. So Waithman making a significant move there to get himself onto potentially the second step of the podium. Bailica still nearly 7 seconds now clear of that pack of cars, so he's not likely to be challenged. Very impressive pace from the German driver this weekend, his debut in the championship. And as his rookie status would suggest, he's not an extremely experienced driver in general. He's done some single-seater racing in America, but he's very much making a name for himself here in the UK on this debut race weekend. Back to the GT class, and Felix Livesey wanders over track limits there, coming out of the loop, 2 wheels in the dirt. Didn't gain any time from that, if anything, lost time to Harry Gamble. As here, Louis Darling comes back at Alex Duncan. Remember, Duncan got past Darling a handful of laps ago. He's now trying to keep Louis behind. There's just about a Ginetta's width gap on the inside. A window goes flying. There's contact. That's broken the steering on Darling's car. And Louis Darling, I'm afraid, is heading for a second non-finish of the weekend. He's also just picked up a 5-second track limit penalty, which is a bit of a kick in the teeth, isn't it? Given the fact his race is going to end, it would seem, on the grass on the exit of Brooklands. There was, I think, a little bit of contact before they got to the braking zone. Certainly something went flying off one of the cars. It looked like a rear side window. And then a big hit in the braking zone. Darling out. Did Duncan continue? That's the question. He's crossed the line, but whether he picked up some damage, we'll have to wait and see. That was the fight for 6th place overall. Here it is again, look. So Darling, Duncan's trying to cover the inside line. There's maybe not a touch there, but there's definitely a touch there, as Darling just misjudged that. He was trying to find that gap up the inside. There was a gap, but only just. And to be that precise at that speed is not an easy thing to do. So Duncan continues on, but as I said, I'll monitor his lap times to see whether there's any indication of damage. First sector time is a little bit off the pace, in fairness, so I wonder whether that has just knocked the tracking out or some damage to the rear bodywork, maybe. Meanwhile, Harry Gamble and Felix Livesey back together again, so Livesey, having lost, I don't know, half a second or more maybe with that grassy moment at the loop a lap ago, has already refound that time, as if to illustrate the pace advantage that he's got, but it's just not enough of a pace advantage, at least not in the right parts of the circuit, to make an overtake. what point does desperation start to set in, I wonder? Livesey, who, having led almost all of yesterday's race, ended up with a non-finish, didn't make it to the flag. Oh, there's drama ahead, that's Pratt Thompson. Cameron Pratt Thompson has spun. He has tangled with Faye Goff. So Faye Goff, the GT Academy driver, whilst being lapped, I have to assume, has tangled with Cameron Pratt Thompson, who digs his way through the gravel trap, but the second place man is off the road. There are yellow flags down at Brooklands for the Louis Darling car. So just as in race 1 yesterday, it's the final third of the race, which seems to have most of the drama within it. Faye Goff continues, that's her second incident of the race. She's got a few stories to tell at the end of race number 2. And that means now that William Antrobus is not really under any pressure as the race leader. He crosses the line at the end of lap number 9, 1.7 seconds clear of Harry Gamble. Was Antrobus involved in that at all? The pair were very close, weren't they, going into that sequence of corners? Harry Gamble does look as though he's continuing to close that gap, so Antrobus maybe just distracted, if nothing else, by what happened behind him, but he's definitely not 1.7 seconds ahead now, is he? So the race leader rounds Chapel. There is Gamble, there is Livesey, second and third respectively. We'll get a first sector time partway down the Hanger Straight, but I reckon they're both going to be quicker than the race leader, aren't they? Antrobus's first sector is a 40.4. Yes, half a second dropped in sector 1 alone. So is there another issue for Antrobus, or has he, as I said, just been distracted slightly by the dramas behind him at the loop? That can happen. Again, William, not the most experienced driver on the grid. Also having to negotiate traffic now in the shape of the GTA class cars, which is a new challenge for the Ginetta GT Championship drivers. And that also, I think, possibly is just delaying William ever so slightly. Second sector, he was another 10th slower than Gamble. 66, by the way, Conor Blackburn, the latest to be handed a track limits penalty. So that GTA class is going to require a bit of sorting out post-race with all of these time penalties. Second place in the GTP8 class, though, that's being settled on the track by the looks of it. Felix Livesey wants to try and find a way past Gamble, especially because he can see how they're catching William Antrobus in front. Yellow flags as we approach lap traffic, and this is going to really hurt Antrobus, who's in the middle of passing these GTA class cars, but you can't overtake them in a yellow flag zone. Regardless of whether it's for position or not, you can't overtake any car whilst the yellow flags are out, and that will cost him more time. Gamble goes to the outside of the GTA car, and that's going to cost him second place. Livesey nips through. Julian Wantling was in the wrong place at the wrong time there. Gamble made the choice to go to the outside, and that was the wrong decision because Wantling then drifted wide. That opened the door for Livesey, who nips through into second position. He is a second behind William Antrobus with 2 laps to go. A big wiggle as he turns into Copse Corner, sneaking to the inside of Ian Beaumont, who doesn't really want another clash in this race, has stayed well out of the way. So now Livesey is unleashed. Can he catch his teammate? Both drivers would absolutely love to claim the first ever victory for the Orion SPR team, new for 2026. Here's a replay of what happened for second place. So the gold and black car is the lap car of Wantling. Gamble thinks Wantling is going to hold the racing line, but he doesn't. He drifts wide, possibly trying to get out of their way, but gets very much in the way of Harry Gamble. And Felix Livesey couldn't believe his luck after getting on for 25 minutes of trying to find a way past the number 23 car. The opportunity fell properly into his lap, and there was contact, wasn't there, between Livesey and Beaumont at Copse Corner. I missed that first time around, but definitely some paint traded there, and that just delayed Livesey slightly in that first sector. He was 2/10 slower than William through the first part of the lap. James Nicholas, by the way, now being given a track limits warning penalty, but he's well clear of Alex Duncan in the battle for the AM class lead. It's a job to keep up with this, isn't it, with the multiple classes out on track at the same time, and all of them seemingly with some dramatic storylines still to unfold. Harry Gamble then approaches Village in the loop for the penultimate time. More traffic ahead. There's Antrobus. How's he been dealing with the traffic? Maybe not quite as effectively as Felix Livesey. That looks like Livesey is quite a bit closer to me. The third sector will be telling. That ends 2/3 of the way down the Wellington Straight. And is the gap coming down ever further? Yes, it is, by another couple of tenths. So Felix Livesey is going to take this fight right down to the wire. William Antrobus needs to hold his nerve and make sure that he's making smart decisions in the traffic, because as we saw, one slight miscommunication between the faster cars and the lapped cars can be very costly. Cameron Pratt-Thompson, by the way, did continue after that spin. He's in 8th position overall, 4th in Pro, and just set an outright fastest second sector, so he's got serious pace in the car. Just to add to his frustrations, really, a race again spent tucked up behind another car, unable to really demonstrate the pace that he had. Ironically, after that spin, he's now able to stretch his legs a little bit. Won't necessarily get the result that he feels he deserves. So, onto the hangar straight, we're about to go for the final time. That's the 77 car of Ian Wright. Alan Wright, excuse me, Chairman's Cup winner yesterday, who was doing his best to stay out of the way. Alan leads the Chairman's Cup again today for drivers over the age of 45. And Alan Wright well clear, actually. Julian Wantling and Robin Grimwood, his main rivals in that class, and they're well down the order. Hopefully no more traffic now, though, for the leaders. The next car they'll catch will be Tom Walker's GTA class car, I believe, which is heading through Abbey Corner. In fact, no, that's not true, is it? There's a little gaggle ahead of them, in fact, so they will have some traffic in the final sector. The yellow flags, I believe, are in now at Brooklands, though, so that's one less complication. But there is still a potential hurdle to be jumped here for William Antrobus, standing between him and a maiden victory. Harry Gamble, if anything, is coming back at Felix Livesey slightly on this final lap, closing in on the second-placed car. On a Blackburn, the first of those GTA cars to be lapped by the leader. He looked to be staying out of the way through Aintree. Indeed, he was. Then we've got the Fallon and Waithman battle for second place in the GTA class. And Antrobus didn't commit to the move. Maybe there are still yellow flags out down at Brooklands. Is that going to bring Felix Livesey within striking range? I'm not convinced it will, but I'm not going to call this a win yet for Antrobus after what happened between here and the checkered flag yesterday for an Orion SPR car. He accelerates off the final corner. He is being delayed by these lap cars. Livesey, I don't think, is quite going to get to him, though. And to the checkered flag they come. It's going to be a 1-2 finish for Orion SPR, and it's William Antrobus who gets their maiden victory in the championship. The team are delighted, and I suspect a little bit relieved to get the two cars across the line. Harry Gamble does not inherit a win this time. He has to settle for third, with James Nicholas victorious within the AM class. Side-by-side battles to the line here. This involves the number 3 car of Elliot Foster, and that was Cameron Pratt-Thompson coming back through, or trying to, but not quite able to get past the number 3. So Nicholas wins in AM, Caudle second, and Alex Duncan third, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure both of those drivers had penalties. Here is Lewis Bailica, meanwhile, who leads the GT Academy class. He leads the rookie class within GT Academy as well. The PT Autosport represented driver comes out of Club Corner. He was the winner of their aspiring driver shootout in America last year, then made the move over to the UK. Had a chat with him before the podium presentation yesterday afternoon, and he was absolutely delighted with the way that his race had gone. And I think he's going to be equally satisfied with this one, a leading margin at the beginning of this lap of nearly 11 seconds, which is, I think, even bigger than his winning margin yesterday. And if he continues this pace, he could be on course for one of the more dominant season-long performances we've seen in this category. Notification, by the way, of a late track limit penalty for the number 7. That was Lucas Theo, another to fall foul of track limits. But no such dramas for Lewis Bailica, who was warned about track limits earlier on, but he had such a lead that he's not really had to push that hard since then. In fact, really, since the first lap, he's been unchallenged out in front, and Lewis Bailica is going to bring the number 17 car out of the final corner at Woodcote and cross the line to claim a second dominant victory of the weekend. Fantastic performance then from the German driver. Here is Tom Walker, only now coming across the line, and he will win in the GT Academy class. They were the last 2 cars on the lead lap, the only 2 GT Academy class drivers not to be lapped by the GTP field. But it is William Antrobus and Ryan SPR who celebrate a, they will say, slightly long-awaited victory. It's only their second race in the championship, but really yesterday's race should have gone their way. But whatever the issues were at the end of the race, it cost them. No repeat of that in race 2. And William Antrobus is able to get across the line first. Former runner-up in the Junior Rotax Championship, part of the British Karting Championship organisation a couple of years ago. Making the move into car racing, though. Dabbled last year in MX5 racing, but this is a big step up. And he has certainly arrived in style. William Antrobus wins the second race of the weekend. Felix Livesey comes home second, and Harry Gamble third, with James Nicholas getting the AM-class win this time ahead of Jamie Cordell and yesterday's winner, Alex Duncan. Elliot Foster was seventh ahead of Cameron Pratt-Thompson after that spin, whilst Lucy Hodgson was the last of the GT cars home. Then Lewis Bylicker wins dominantly so in GT Academy, whilst the GTA class win goes to Tom Walker ahead of Maxwell Wakeman and Will Fallon. Connor Blackburn was next, then it was the Chairman's Cup winner, Alan Wright, whilst Ben Wiseman and Lucas Theo, well down the order, will still be on the rookie class podium. Ash Young and Ian Beaumont were next. Julian Wantling, Robin Grimwood, Ben Cook, Fagoff and Joseph Oskoltov complete the finishers. Louis Darling, of course, out after that dramatic contact down at Brooklands. Well, there is Felix Livesey, smile on his face. It would have been a bigger smile had he been headed for the top step of the podium, but a 1-2 finish for the team. And they will be absolutely delighted with how their second race has gone. Race 2 for the Ginetta GT and GT Academy Championships here at Silverstone was equally as dramatic as the first one. It was a rinse and repeat, really, for the start of the race, with William Antrobus this time starting on the outside of Cameron Pratt-Thompson and doing exactly what his teammate Felix Livesey did yesterday, sweeping round the outside of the SVG Motorsport driver at Beckett's to take the early lead. There was some early battling behind. Livesey, who led much of yesterday's race, was a bit out of position on the grid and had a tough task ahead of him to get back in contention for the win. Joseph Oskoltov was in trouble as well. The GTA class winner yesterday, pulling off the road with early dramas. He pitted and did then continue in the race. Fagoff, meanwhile, got a little bit too close to the back of Julian Wantling's car, tapping him into a spin at Chapel, and there was more drama at Copse Corner, with Ben Cook tapped into a high-speed rotation after contact with Ian Beaumont. It wasn't the last paint to be traded either. Louis Darling clattered into the back of Alex Duncan's car down at Brooklands. He was out of the race, and yellow flags would fly at that corner for the remainder of the 25 minutes. Meanwhile, Harry Gamble was feeling the heat from Felix Livesey. They would both benefit, though, when Cameron Pratt-Thompson spun out of second position, and then a miscommunication in traffic for Harry Gamble opened the door for Livesey to make it, and an Orion SPR 1-2 with William Antrobus claiming the first win for the team in the championship.